Jo Nundy is from Kingston upon Hull, Yorkshire, UK, and is the mum of 2 little people. She loves to write horror and sci-fi with a little romance sprinkled in there for good measure. She started out writing zombie apocalypse, but generally finds that she loves writing about strong women in any capacity. Throw them into some kind of trouble, and away she goes. So, Jo, bring it on.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm going to read from Flames of Vengeance. It's book 1 in a 3-book series about pretty much strong women. That's just what I love to write about. So I'll start with chapter 1. Gabriella wouldn't have described herself as a lover of men, but she did have 2 very fun things she liked to do with them. Using them for their bodies was all well and good, but killing them even better. The important factor, though, was that she refused to kill innocent people. She might revel in the death of the guilty, but she wasn't a complete monster. Gabriella unzipped her black rucksack, pulled the cold metal free, and built her concealable sniper rifle. She twisted the suppressor onto the 14-inch barrel, then aimed the rifle towards the doors of the club across the road. The night air was cooling by the second, nearing freezing. Gabriella pulled her zip to her throat, but pulled down her hood, revealing her long, dark ponytail. She rested the gun safely on the brick at the edge of the roof, then peered through her binoculars. The streets on the other side of the club bustled, the evening only just beginning. Groups of women cackled, and men, half drunk already, jostled and shouted amongst themselves. The cars drew nearer, so Gabriella dipped her eye to her scope and located the club's back door. The door flung open, and a burly man in his early 40s appeared with a muscled, much younger companion. Both wore long black coats and earpieces, classic bouncer attire for the upmarket clubs. There may have been additional bodyguards she hadn't seen yet, but that never mattered to her. She knelt in front of the rifle and settled into wait, taking several slow, deep breaths. The cold filtered in through her nostrils and throat, and clouds covered the moon, concealing any light it might have shone her way. This could all be over in the next 30 seconds. The Range Rover's engines announced their arrival, and a few seconds later, the trio of black vehicles pulled up at the side of the club. Men exited the front and rear vehicles, leaving them idling as they took up strategic positions around the primary Range Rover. A bodyguard opened the rear passenger door as he craned his neck to check out the surrounding area. Not one man had looked in Gabriella's direction yet, but they would have seen very little in the dark in any case. Gabriella readied her scope as noise from the nearby street escalated. Laughing and screaming women in the throes of drunkenness got closer just as his leg appeared out the side of the car. His forearm followed next as the man grasped the door frame to pull himself out. Then his full head of hair came into view. Gotcha. This was the man she had been tasked with taking out. The higher-ups had taken a large sum of money in payment for the hit, and according to Karen, this was a hit that would be beneficial for them as well, whatever the hell that meant. The guy was bad, and that was all Gabriella needed to know. It hadn't taken much research to confirm. Gabriella placed her finger over the trigger and breathed slowly, her face pressed against the cold metal. With his head centered in her crosshair, she applied pressure to take the shot when a woman squealed nearby. The bodyguard who had opened the door pushed the target back inside as 2 others investigated. Gabriella pressed her lips into a thin line and tried to resume her breathing techniques until the chance presented itself again. No sooner had the bodyguard reappeared at the door, the target was climbing out, but with another bodyguard blocking Gabriella's sight, the black fabric of his coat concealing every inch of the target. Damn. For a moment, the top of his head poked just above that of the bodyguard, but before Gabriella could pull the trigger, the target dipped down to pick up a piece of paper. This was not going well. She ground her teeth and waited for his head to pop up again, but the cars had pulled close to the club door, and just as his head rose, the biggest bouncer shoved his massive skull in the way. He was inside the club. Gabriella closed her dark brown eyes and counted to 10 before she opened them again. She lifted the sniper and disassembled it, placing it back in her rucksack. The soft clicks of the metal attachments coming apart was the only sound on top of the building. Then she stood and peeled off her hoodie and black leggings, feeling the nip of the cold. She snatched a rolled-up dress from her bag, positioned a blonde wig over her dark hair, and put on a pair of heels. She had to go inside to get the job done. The question was, should she charm her way to his side or brutalise the lot of them? Leaving the bag on the roof, she descended the stairs of the office building and slipped back out into the frosty night. She could taste the brisk weather, chilling more by the minute. Her black bandage dress wasn't so obvious that she would stand out, but she looked damn hot should she need to get close. The knife strapped to her inner thighs were the only weapon she'd need inside, although she preferred a handgun. So I'll just take one of theirs. She strutted across to the club, running her fingers through her long blonde wig, pumping up the volume. Her turned tan legs caught the attention of the two bouncers first, making them smirk at each other as though she hadn't noticed. Gabriella headed straight for the front of the queue that stretched several metres along the pavement. Murmurs went up around her as she approached the two bouncers. Long lashes fluttered up at them before they lifted the rope barrier and gestured her inside with a wink. Morons. The dark club enveloped her, providing far more warmth than the streets of London in these November months. Pounding music thudded through her chest as shadows danced between the strobe lights. The stench of beer and alcohol reached her as she moved deeper inside. Bodies swayed on the dance floor and groups gathered at the bar for more drinks, but there was no sign of her Mark just yet. The intel had detailed the meeting he was here for with another businessman, possibly a drug lord from somewhere other than the north of England like her hit. Impatience squirmed beneath Gabriella's skin at the idea of having to be inside the club. The guy had been lucky outside, but he wouldn't be for much longer. Gabriella eyed the roped-off area at the top of the stairs, but there was hardly anyone up there. She had studied the layout of the club long ago and knew which doors led where. She headed over to the toilets at the rear of the club and pushed through into the brightly lit hall. Her skin prickled and her senses ratcheted up as she passed the ladies' toilets and headed for the door she needed. A quick glance behind told her she was still alone. A flare of adrenaline spiked, igniting her phoenix just a fraction too much. She was due another injection in a couple of days, but the added work of this night might mean she'd need it straight after. Karen wouldn't be pleased if she let it go too far, but damn her, sometimes it felt too good to be set free a little. She concentrated on what she knew before stepping through the next door. The target had 6 bodyguards and 3 drivers. His team usually left the 3 drivers outside with one of the bodyguards, leaving 5 inside with him. The target was unskilled, so he wouldn't be a threat in the slightest. Even if he were, she wasn't bothered. Gabriella reached out to shove open the door and felt the crackle of energy reach her fingertips. She glanced down, seeing the sparks arcing between each finger. Well, 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 she whispered to herself. You guys are getting more than you bargained for tonight. She stepped into a long corridor where 2 of the target's bodyguards stood at a closed door and a third stood farther down the hall. 2 men closed in on her, glaring. They were bodyguards too and must have been with the businessman her target was meeting. Their still sweat and the smell of cheap deodorant met her quickly as they drew too close. Who are you? The shorter grunt asked, his hand on his weapon holstered at his side. Gabriella could have pretended to be drunk, stumbling into the wrong place, but after assessing this group of men, she decided that wouldn't be necessary. She smiled. Well, hello, boys. Want to hand me your guns now, or should I take them from you instead? The short bodyguard's casual demeanour dropped as he gripped his Glock and almost pulled it free. Tonight is going to be much more fun than I first thought. Thank you.